first, congrats.
Oh, thank you.
Hell of films. And hopefully another one too that will be awesome.
Thank you.
But I was kind of eavesdropping and was listening to you talking about sort of the great action films of class like that have inspired you. So my thought nowadays, and I was thinking about this going into the raid too, is I think about how do we in this day and age improve upon action? How do we make it better? How do we take it to the next levels? How do we do that without losing everything that is so great about it? Like you were referencing, you had mentioned there was like a Peckinpah scene from 40 years ago where like that is still the greatest action scene around. So how can we, if that's the case, how can we nowadays continue to progress the genre and push fighting and
I mean, when I talk about that, I mean that's obviously like the case for like a shootout.
Yeah, of course.
That's that. I mean, and it's like Hard Boiled comes awful fucking close to reaching that. And
yeah.
it.
That's what I mean. Like you have these films where they've done such a great job. It's like how could anyone ever top that? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. But it's like I mean, I guess to me, it's not. You know, it doesn't. I don't think it necessarily means that we have to kind of like keep topping all the time because at some point you can't keep topping anything. You know, it's like if something's just really good, it's really good, and that's fine. And for me, it's like this. When it comes to action cinema, like this does not make bad action cinema anymore. That's like the key to it. Yeah. You know, it's just that's the simple thing. It's like, and what we're doing is not new. This shit has like been done for like decades before, and we're just going back in time and doing it the same way they did. Like, and part of it's kind of because this, like, I'm not a flashy editor. I edit my own stuff, and I'm not a flashy editor. So like, I can't do like all the bells and whistles that like most of the editors do these days. But in a way, I think that kind of works to my benefit because. Like it's like this. A shot on the screen should give you an opportunity to take it in and then breathe it in and then feel it first before you cut to the next shot. There are always moments where a quick insert is a good thing, but it should never be that all the way through an action sequence.
Right.
And I find like nowadays, one of the biggest downfalls of an action scene is seeing, and this doesn't just happen here, but this is not like an American action cinema thing that happens nowadays.
Right.
This happens in like Hong Kong, China, Thailand, all different countries, where there'll be a shot, and it's like the one thing I hate more than anything, where it's like a close up of the actor, and you just see him, and he's just like swinging his arms around and all that shit, and then you can't see anything going on. You don't see any contact, no connection. But then they'll throw in 10 blocks and then a punch sound, and it's like the guy's not doing anything. He's just swinging his arms around while the camera's in close up, and it's just a pad-in shot. It's just something to extend the duration of that fight scene a little longer and make you feel like there's more there. Right. And that's a cheap shot. And for me, that's the worst type of choreography, the worst type of camera angle for a film like that. So for me, it's always been this thing of like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, let's do this properly. I work with the choreographers from a very early stage. I work with them right from the beginning. And so when I'm discussing with it, I know what they're doing. I know what the complexity of the choreography is. I understand, okay, this is why that throw is that throw. I understand, okay, this is why that punch and that block, how they all interconnect with each other. So when I'm watching them do that, I'm looking around, my head's kind of turning and twisting, and then that's basically what the camera is going to do. Because I want the audience to be able to see the same shit that I'm seeing, which is the detail.
Right.
And then beyond that, going back to things like Peckinpah and John Woo, and what they did was like Peckinpah started, John Woo fucking took it even further, is that idea, that sense of space and geographical awareness, and be able to know where you are in a room, know what your location is, where the escape routes are, and it's not to telegraph stuff. It's not like this big wide open space, but look, there's a knife over here. It's not like that. It's not telegraphing something which will be a plot point, but it's just the audience will see it and feel everything, so that they know where they are. Then when you start roaming around them with that camera and you start running around and turning corners and coming around, you feel like it makes sense. It still makes sense in your head. You're not trying to figure out where the person is.
Yeah, it's almost like a realism in a sense of finally I watch it and I'm like, oh, this is how a fight in this building would actually happen.
Yeah.
Like you have to go somewhere, he's gonna go up the stairs, he's gotta make the trip here, he's gotta fight the people in the hall, he's gotta go through that. As opposed to just let's just have him running around halls where they don't lead anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of it. It's we try to figure out a way to make these action sequences work where they feel like they're organic, and then that we've and that comes from the writing too as well. I mean, it's always whenever it comes to the action scenes, nothing's an action scene in my head until I've got it to that point in the script where I'm ready for it to happen. So it's always the writing first, and then that'll dictate to me where the fight's going to happen. So the prison riot. It came about because of in the script I reached that point where I was ready to say okay, now we need something. And I want to make sure that scene is plot dependent as well, that it's going to push the plot forward and the characters forward. So like that prison riot was all about the idea of building up the sense of paranoia in Rama. Is he the one that's going to come under attack? When he realizes he's not, and it's his target is the person he's supposed to be siding up with, all of a sudden that guy, he has to protect him, he has to become bodyguard.
Right.
So it shifts, the fight scene shifts. And if he dies, if the guy dies, that's his mission over. He's just going to rot in prison for 3 years for no reason at all.
Right.
And so then when he ends up, protecting him, in the process of protecting this guy who hated Rama, he now realizes, like, this guy's a good guy. And then that final look between the two of them before the end of that scene, then it's like, okay, on a pure visual level and the visceral level, you guys got a cool action scene out of it for 6 or 7 minutes, and it's a great, it's fun and it's entertaining, it's thrilling. But on a plot level and a character level, we've just established a link between the two of them and then a bond between the two of them, so that the very next scene I can cut to them coming out of prison and being picked up by Ucho. And then it makes sense that would happen then.
Yeah. You sort of touched upon something I want to ask about anyway, which is like what came first in sort of the creation of things. For example, do you go to Indonesia, scout locations, and say it would be awesome if we could have a fight here and a fight here and a fight here, and then how do you build narratives around that? Or is it kind of like we were saying with the prison, where it's like, okay, the story says he goes to prison, there has to be a fight at a prison, let's find that location.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for my art department and my location guys in this, because we just design shit in pre-pro. It's like a section way before we start with our crew. So it's like me, Iko, and Yayan. We'll just go through stuff, and then we'll say like, we'll be like this. We'll be like, okay, we got the crash mats around on the floor, and if we're like, when we did the corridor fight in the first film with the knife and the stick, what we would do is this: we'd say like, let's make it no more than 2 meters wide. So we get 2 crash mats and then make a strip down the middle of the room. And then like we're watching and we're trying to figure out the movement of it, the fight choreography, and then we're trying to like say like, okay, well you can't go too far over here now because you're in the wall. So like we've mapped that out. But then we'll tell our location, we'll tell our art department, alright, we need a 2 meter corridor. Maybe that doesn't exist in reality, so let's build it in the set. And then so it's like a lot of work that goes into it then, and like,
but it sounds like the fights still come first in a sense. So at least the choreography.
The fights come first before locations and the art department get to have a touch on the film. But not before the script. So the script is the kind of the king on it. But then, like there'll be little things like in the warehouse, for example, the fight in the warehouse we did. Holy shit! Like we had that one moment when the guy gets his head pushed and he hits like this beam, and then bounces down and hits the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, so we designed that choreography before we actually found the location.
Oh.
And we found that location and it didn't have a beam there. So we built this whole staircase and walkway just so we could do that piece of choreography. We didn't use it at all for anything else then, but just for that one piece of choreography only, we built that beam. And it was like, I was like, but now I think of it, I'm like, oh, you fucking stupid. Like, we could have just changed it to something else, but it works really well. The choreography works really well. So we kept that in there just for that purpose. But it must have cost a lot of money for us to build that thing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that was another question I was going to ask is, how much do you learn or discover through choreography? Are there major changes made narratively, or is it kind of just like you guys know what you're going to do and then you just you want to make it look cool and then that happens, or?
There's always the bigger picture at play. Each fight scene has a different approach, has a different purpose and a different approach. For example, that final fight in the kitchen, I wanted that. Thank you. One of the things I'm most proud of about that scene, beyond the physical stuff, beyond the sort of like the technical fighting and things like that, it's that it kind of feels accurate in its way that it kind of portrays the idea of somebody getting more and more beat down, of somebody getting more and more exhausted on a fight that starts off between 2 guys who are at the peak of their powers, at the, and the most skilled they've ever been, to suddenly being in a position whereby all of that complexity and the intricacy of their choreography takes it goes off to the side, and then instead we're just like desperation time, brutal, just like hack and slash type approach to it.
Right.
And the fact that they kind of like it get deconstructs to that point by the end of the fight scene, that's something I'm really like happy about and proud of with the scene. And those guys are so good. And one of the things is like this, when it comes to that, there's an element of action films in the public eye where it's like, when an action film comes out, no one wants to talk about like performances. Like, they'll talk about physical ability but not performances, right? Because it's one of those genres, same like a horror film in a way, where because it's such a visual thing and because it's such a universal language, people will go. It's like this. People will watch a drama film and always talk about the performances,
Right.
like incredible performances, amazing physical performance of a guy in a drama scene, right? Now what happens? This is something that always gets overlooked sometimes.
Right.
When it comes to a fight scene like that, selling that idea of a gradual progression from being at the top of your power, like to this exhaustion, this mental
Right.
and physical exhaustion, and that the desperation of those like final slashes.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, like with this thing, we never do anything in a master shot. Like if I'm doing a drama sequence, I can get a person to go from A to B by letting them breathe that roll out and
Right.
live that roll out for the
Right.
entire sequence of that scene, and then we'd go take after take after take, shot by shot by shot. But they still have a bleed in, they still have a lead in
Yeah.
to get to that place. In a fight sequence, from what I do, because every shot is like a jigsaw piece. They're having to create that sense of that through line of a performance in a 2-second chunk, and a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It's 190 shots in that final fight, and each one we have to keep reminding them where they are. Reminding them where they are in terms of that scene, and trying to figure out like how tired are they,
Yeah.
what stage are they,
Yeah.
how desperate are they, and for it to kind of flow and not feel like it
Yeah.
goes up and down. That's a skill set that gets way overlooked all the time.
Well, I mean, this probably is exactly why I love these movies more than other action movies, is that you just like feel so much more out of the action and the characters and the performances. But you're right, like it's not, performances aren't mentioned much.
No, exactly, yeah.
I wanted to ask, did you, and I know I tend to ask this question a lot, and I know the answer is no, but for the sake of what we're getting to here, but
No. Yeah, go ahead.
well, with the raid, my question was going to be, did you expect it to be as beloved as it became, or
Nah.
to be as big of a hit? And then connecting in with Raid 2, was the success of the Raid 1 helpful in sort of the size and the scope of what we see in Raid 2?
Okay, first one no, second one yes. I'll put the details out.
Yeah.
That first film, we had no expectation at all, absolutely none.
Did you even think it would break out
No.
at all? You just thought no one would care
Genuinely,
about it? Really?
genuinely. Like when we finished that print, that
Huh.
first print, we were so locked in on the post. It was such a stressful time to get that film finished. Me and my producer Toro back in Indonesia, who's basically been like my mentor throughout this whole process. Like he's been such a support to me. We did this thing. We finished the first film. We previewed the first film on 35mm print, and we watched it and we looked at it and we were like, okay, we have something. Maybe we can get some good reviews. That's it. Because we were looking at the technical stuff so much.
Yeah.
Because we were so locked in. We were like, this pixel breakup here and the low light is not good. Like, the sound could be better, or this could be better. The color could be better here. All these little things were kind of like eating away at us, and we couldn't switch off from it. All of a sudden, we go to Toronto, screen the film, and then boom, it fucking pops.
Yeah.
And like me and Iko were sat next to each other throughout the screening, and like sitting next to Iko is a dangerous thing in the screening, because like when he gets excited, he just keeps like elbowing me, just like as if I'm not fucking hearing the reaction as well.
Right.
And I'm just like, yeah, I know, it's amazing, it's amazing. Let's keep watching the film. And then it's one of these things whereby like I couldn't have imagined that it would have had the reaction that it did, because like I knew we were making an aggressive little movie. It was a nasty little beast of a movie. So to see people kind of like lose their shit for it and get excited by it and get like that was reassuring to me. It's like I've never had that before and anything I've done before. So suddenly I'm like, holy crap, something I did resonated with people in some way or another. And that's a bizarre thing to understand and bizarre thing to kind of accept. So when it came to the second one, then there was like a certain amount of pressure and expectation, because we weren't the surprise anymore. And so I was thinking, okay, well, what are we going to do next? And how are we going to do this next? And so that whole thing was to kind of just cast aside the idea of fuck the idea of doing a sequel that's just a rehash.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to roll out the same setups but with a slightly tweaked punchline. Like I don't like a terrible sequel would do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something different with it. I'm gonna expand the universe, do something which feels like it's a true sequel to this film.
Right.
That takes themes that were inherent in the first film and just expands them way out, and then makes you feel like, I don't know. For me, it would make the first one feel more valuable too.
Yeah.
And so that was always the goal on it. And thankfully, because the first one did so well, like we were able to go to our investor and ask for more money to be able to make the part 2. And then, you know, and this is the thing, like we don't make films for that much money in Indonesia in comparison to here. But we do put every fucking penny up there on the screen, you know, we just don't have a choice. There's no way we could do that thing for anything less.
Yeah, one of my questions I was going to ask was basically how much of a product of Indonesia this film is as much as your vision and Nico's vision. Like it seems, I mean, in general I find it very interesting that the film almost doesn't feel Indonesian to me. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that like it just feels like a global film that everyone can just watch and you just get lost.
That's a big part of it. Like one of my goals is to kind of make it feel like it's a universal film, to make it feel like it is global, and then that like there'll be certain Indonesian elements, like cultural things and like you know elements in there which are sort of, you know, important for me to kind of give it a sense of cultural identity, but not in terms of like stating explicitly this is Indonesia, this is Jakarta. Because for me it's like this, like in the first movie we played on a couple of little elements of Indonesian culture. This one a little more even, you know, like in the first one it was like the boss in his like vest and his sarong eating instant noodles and like that.
Right.
There's little things like that, but you know, as somebody who's not been to Indonesia, they wouldn't necessarily know that. In this one, it's like the Reog festival performance with like, you know, like the masks and the creatures and stuff like that. That's like the specifically Indonesian thing, and I guess in a way, like that's like a small element again. It's like introducing little flavor, just like flavors from it, rather than like, you know, broadcasting to the world. This is Indonesia, and that, because at the same time, like here's the thing. That first film, that building does not exist in Indonesia.
Right.
This movie, like we don't have like Japanese. Well, as far as I know, we don't have Japanese yakuza in Indonesia. You know, operating the way they do in this film. And so far, thank fuck, I've never met a real hammer girl. So yeah,
it probably exists like, somewhere.
Oh, please no. But you know, it's like this thing. It's like this. It's like yeah, it's a fictitious world, and like I was saying earlier, action and horror, they're like universal themes. They have universal themes across the board, and they play well in different countries. And so, yeah, for me, it's like Indonesia itself has given me my career, without a doubt, and that's unquestionable. I was not doing anything of importance before I went to Indonesia. And like, you know, I've been blessed to kind of like be able to go out there and find out about this martial art and be able to meet Iko and meet Yayan and meet these guys, and to be able to, you know, find something that I can do that, you know, I guess that I'm good at doing, and to be able to make a career out of it. So like it's blown me away, and I'm always kind of feel like every day that I get to shoot this stuff is like a privilege to me.
Yeah.
So even though now we're in this position where like my next two things will be like projects that I do outside of Indonesia, like, you know, abroad, something in US, something in UK. My goal is always to kind of go back to Indonesia and make another 2 films there as well. And so anything I learn from US, anything I learn from working out here that will benefit the film industry back there, I'm going to bring that back and then put that in place and try to kind of help, you know, build that infrastructure and get the Indonesian film industry like away from where it is right now, which is still in its infancy, despite the fact it's been going for so many years, so many decades now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every time I mention it on Twitter or anything, right, at all, like all these Indonesian people respond, almost like they have an ownership on it, like yes, see this, like this is us. Like,
well, that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of Indonesians that are proud of the fact that it's Indonesia.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you know what? It's like this, right? This weird thing. Like, and I've seen it because like we lurk around on some of the forums every now and then. There are people who like get really pissy because of Indonesian people write down, "Oh, we're proud to be Indonesians." Like it's a bad thing. I'm like, it's like, dude, just let the kid have his fucking moment. It's fine if he's proud of it that it's Indonesian. That's great. Let him express that. Who gives a shit? But it's like some of them are saying like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. It's gonna look bad. It's gonna look cheesy. It's gonna look terrible for us. It's like, no. You can be fucking proud of it. And the thing is like this. I'm the only foreign element of that film. You know, and all of my crew, with the exception of me and my DOP, everyone else is a local guy. Everyone else is an Indonesian guy. They've worked so fucking hard in this film. Iko has worked so hard to establish himself about where he is and what he does. So is Yayan, so is Cecep, so is the entire cast. The money's from Indonesia. It's made in Indonesia. It's shot there. You know, most of the work is done there. So they have a right to be fucking proud. So hopefully they are.
Of course. The remake.
Yes.
What? You're involved in this, right?
I'm involved.
Or like
I'm involved to a certain degree. I mean, less involved than you know, It's like this. I'm on board as an exec producer, and then sometimes there'll be little decisions made along the way where they consult me on them, and that's it. When they made the decision on Patrick, that was something I was backing him 100% on, because he's great. He's a great director, and he's the right person for the role. Yeah. And now that he's in that position, now that he signed on, that's when I step back. Because the thing is, now it's like this. When I made my one, I had nobody question me at all. I was able to go off and do it by myself. And so what I feel is essential for him is for him to have the same environment. He shouldn't have somebody looking over his shoulder questioning what he's doing. He should just be free to explore whatever he wants to do in terms of the action discipline. And so for me, it's like this. Talking about like remakes, and like I said this a couple of times, and I've really got to stop using Old Boy as an example of it, because Spike Lee's gonna fucking go crazy on me.
Yeah, he's gonna hunt you down.
On Twitter, he's gonna hunt me down on Twitter and like explode. And I love fucking Spike Lee as well. I love his films and shit like that. But it's just this. It's like, and it's not an analogy, because I haven't seen the Old Boy remake yet. But what I'm using as an analogy is this. Like when it comes to a remake of a film, when it's that plot dependent and that character based, and those like twists and turns are so inherent in the original that you just can't deviate, you got to stick to it, then I don't follow so much the reasons behind a remake. Then I don't get it so much, because technically all you're doing is just taking off the subtitles. But when it comes to something like The Raid, I get it, because it's like this. You can do the first 10 minutes the same, do the setup the same, and then get them into that building. From that point on, those action sequences which lead the charge in the film, they can be anything. They can literally go anywhere in any direction and do anything they want with them. They could do stuff that I couldn't afford to do when I was making mine. Like there's stunt sequences that I wanted to do that I just didn't have the budget for, that I couldn't afford to do, that they could now end up going off and doing. Or create an entire new landscape. That building doesn't have to have the same structure. It can be completely different design. They can include different rooms, different elements of it, different corridors that lead to different parts of that building. There's so much they can do there, which is totally different from what I did. So in that respect, I'm still excited for it. And in that respect, I get it and I understand it. But they've got to let Patrick go for it. They've got to let him just really push the boat out on it and see what he comes up with.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time.
Cheers, man. Thanks so much.